don't write off Keir Starmer. He's inherited an awful legacy, but I'm confident that we can turn it around.
Mr. Mayor, hello.
Good to be back.
Also, this is the first time we've been in, I call it your new office, but you have been here for 3 years now, haven't you?
Well, Newscast on the road. Good to see. Good to see.
Like a field trip for us.
Yeah, very good.
Before we begin with the serious business, right, I've got some paperwork here. Here is the artist's impression of the new pedestrianised Oxford Street, right? So look at the artwork on the ground, the logo on the ground. It's like a sort of orange and teal triangular artwork, isn't it?
I can feel a claim coming. Yeah.
Look at the Newscast logo. Do you see any
Can I just
similarities
say,
to the ground of Oxford Street and us?
We have ripped off BBC
Intellectual
Newscast.
property.
That's not an admission of liability, by the way, or a confession. Okay. Words will be had, I can promise you.
No, is it going to actually look like that, do you think, when it's pedestrianised?
No.
Okay. Newsagent's logo plastered all over it.
But we're trying, on a serious note, we're trying to give people an idea of what Oxford Street looks like without cars, without buses. And we are going to pedestrianise this street. Why? Because it's a great street. Historically, when we were growing up, it was the nation's high street. Over successive decades, it's been in decline, and we want to bring people back, not just to retail, but leisure, hospitality, tourism, and so forth. So it's going to be fantastic.
Do you kind of accept them that it's not the nation's high street now?
I think there are all problems with Oxford Street. When I was growing up, there wasn't the competition shopping online. There wasn't competition from great malls. We hadn't had the pandemic. That means that we should redouble our efforts to support retail, but also to recognise, look, there's 3 things people did remarkably well during the pandemic: work from home, do leisure from home, and shop from home. We've got to make each of those 3 experiences better in person. And so our offer to the retail sector in Oxford Street is we're going to revitalise that street. We're going to re-energise that street. We're going to invest in that street, improve the public realm, plant some trees, green that street, get rid of the cars and the buses. And I think you'll see big names coming back because too many have left, but also not just Londoners, people across the country and across the globe wanting to come to Oxford Street to spend time and to shop.
So when will it happen?
We are working on plans now. We've got some plans out for consultation on some changes to the traffic movement. We've set up a development corporation. We've set up a board to look into this. I would hope by the middle of this year to be able to share better pictures than BBC Newscast rip-off.
With more generic artwork, yeah.
And we could start moving forward this year, I hope.
That's not quite an answer. When will it actually happen? When will it be pedestrianised?
This year.
This year, so it will happen this year. Entirely pedestrianised this year.
We're doing it in phases.
Right.
So the first part, if you can visualise, is for those non-Londoners, I apologise. Oxford Circus Tube Station, basically going towards Bond Street, just past Selfridges. That'll be the first phase of that street being pedestrianised.
No, the Leeds tram. Just kidding. You don't have any responsibility for that. Just trying to balance it out for the rest of the country. Right, let's talk about some of the other work you've been doing. Crime. And there's some data you want to share with us today that kind of tells a good story about what's been happening in London.
Well, firstly, it's really important I say this because I feel this, but, one homicide is one death too many. One violent crime is one victim too many. But the progress we've made, even our harshest critics will have to accept, is remarkable. Evidence published today by the police shows that last year we had the fewest number of murders, homicides, since records began on a per capita basis. The fewest numbers of under 25s killed this century. The lowest number of teenagers killed in almost 3 decades. And there's a number of reasons for that. We have had a sustained focus on a public health approach to addressing violent crime, being tough on crime enforcement, supporting the police with record investment, and tough on the complex causes of crime by early intervention and prevention. So we set up the country's first violence reduction unit in 2019. Since then, we've seen a 44% reduction in young people injured with a knife going to hospitals. And that means there are 3 times fewer young people being killed than 2019.
When you say a public health approach, do you mean treating knife crime, gun crime, murders almost like a disease?
Spot on. What do you do when there's a disease? You deal with the infection. So we've had dismantling of serious organised criminal gangs, disrupting county and drugs lines, precision manhunts, increased surveillance. You stop the infection spreading, similarly doubling investment from City Hall to the police service at a time of central government cuts, but also stop the infection occurring in the first place. So we provided youth club facilities, youth workers in police stations and in hospitals. We've provided mentors to young people, after school clubs, holiday schemes, tackled the issue of exclusions and absenteeism. And that's why I can say with humility and not complacency at all, London is safer than Paris, Milan, Rome, Brussels, Berlin, Toronto, safer than any state in the USA, 2.5 times safer than New York, 5 times safer than Los Angeles, 12 times safer than Chicago. We're not complacent, though. We're going to make more progress and build on this.
The context of all of this is that there's a narrative, isn't there, out there on social media and elsewhere that London is dangerous, that it's some sort of hellhole. That's the kind of language you see people using about London. We've heard language from the President of the United States, from Nigel Farage, the Reform leader, and from others. Why do you think they are making that argument?
Well, look, in recent years, certain politicians and commentators have been spamming our social media feeds with what I call distortions and untruths. They do it for their own political agenda. They do it because they may be nativists. They may have a certain worldview. Let's look at London objectively.
And by nativist, you mean somebody who thinks that to be British, you have to be white.
Or spot on, or to be a Westerner, you've got to be white, or there's a clash of civilizations.
Do you think there's a sort of racist undertone to this portrayal of London?
Look at London. London is liberal, it is progressive, it is diverse, and it is incredibly successful. We're the antithesis of everything some of these politicians and commentators stand for. Look at a number of independent, objective criteria. The number one city in the world for tourism, the music capital of the world, the sporting capital of the world, international student capital of the world. The foreign direct investment in London is remarkable. Last year, we had more Americans coming here to work, to study, and to invest for some time. And that's a problem if you're somebody who doesn't believe it's possible for diversity to be a strength and you think it's a weakness.
You're coming out today and making this argument and making it passionately. I guess some might say maybe you should have been on this soapbox making this argument much more forcefully for so long, so that this narrative that's out there was trampled on sooner.
I can point you, Chris and Adam, after we finish this, to examples of me doing so, and I'll.
But if it was successful, I guess that narrative of a failing city wouldn't have taken hold.
Well, here's the issue: those that know London don't accept that narrative, don't accept that thesis. That's one of the reasons why J.P. Morgan Chase, Apple, Google, I could give a number of examples, are investing in London. That's the reason why tourists come here. That's why international students come here. It's those that don't know London who believe this perception and this narrative. And that's one of the things I'm keen to rebut and respond to. So if you're somebody who may live in a part of the country and for good reasons has never mixed with Muslims, or it hasn't spent time in a place that's diverse, you may not unreasonably believe this narrative because you're not been to London. You may be scared of coming to London.
Have you seen evidence that people were?
Well, when you listen to radio phone-ins or look at social media, you get some people who believe some of this nonsense and distortions.
Or the sense that London can be a sort of punch bag, I guess. Or a sense that maybe the streets are paved with gold, or that it gets a disproportionate amount of funding, that kind of
There are a number of preconceptions people have about London. There are some people who believe the streets are paved with gold, which is one of my concerns when it comes to the laudable objective, which I support, to make a country more equal. I think the way to make a country more equal is not to make London poorer, to make other parts of the country get more investment. But it's across the globe, Chris. You've got people now who may only be on X, who may follow the likes of President Trump or Vice President J.D. Vance in America, or follow the likes of Elon Musk across the globe. And my nervousness and anxieties, they will believe the version they're putting out is the correct version.
But had you started seeing evidence that somebody who maybe would have come to London for the weekend to see a West End show 5 years ago wasn't going to come now, and it was because of stuff they'd seen on social media?
Well, the good news is we're winning the argument in terms of, we're not seeing that, thankfully. We're seeing record numbers come to London in terms of tourists. Theatre productions are sold out. Every artist in the world wants to perform in London. If you're talented, you want to come to one of our universities. So that's all good and well, but we can't be complacent. I don't want people talking down our capital city. I think it's unpatriotic to talk down our capital city. What we are seeing,
it's not making any difference economically or tourism-wise. Why does it matter?
What we are seeing, though, is British politicians and British commentators jumping on that bandwagon, talking down our capital city, using London as a punchbag to try and garner supports across the country, giving the impression diversity is a problem across the country, giving an impression that integration is a challenge across the country. The evidence from London is our diversity is a strength, not a weakness. It makes us richer, not poorer, which is incredibly important.
You're kind of actually speaking as a national politician here rather than a mayor of a city, aren't you? Like that's a UK-wide message you're putting across there.
We are the capital city of our great country. We're a city that's growing, which I think is a good thing. It's because people want to come here. We've got to recognise, though, that brings with it challenges and opportunities as well. One of the challenges is to continue to make London an attractive place. And that's an opportunity for us because we want wealth creators to come here to generate wealth, generate prosperity and help us.
Loads for us to talk about. Just on that subject of crime and looking beyond what you were talking about, phone thefts. So just over 1% of phone thefts in London result in a charge or conviction, according to police data. 117,000 stolen during 2024. I mean, having your phone nicked in London is basically legal, isn't it? When you look at that 1% figure, if your phone is nicked, that's the end of it. You're not going to see it again, and the evidence suggests there's not going to be anything coming about other than you having to get another phone.
Well, if your phone is stolen, it's incredibly distressing. You've got all your photographs on there, your personal messages, your phone numbers, and so forth. And we have seen in the past an increase in mobile phone thefts in all cities across Europe, including London. We've got now a focus to tackle that. So what are we doing about this? We've, with the police, had Operation Reckoning. Many of the phones stolen end up in China or North Africa or other parts of the globe. These are international, serious, organised criminal gangs. And so what the police have done is shut down these gangs who are responsible for tens of thousands of phones being taken overseas. We've doubled the size of the team in the West End. A lot of these phones, and by the way, luxury watches, were stolen in parts of London which are quite well to do, inverted commas. And so we've got more police officers, covert and overt, there. And that's why we're seeing, for example, in the most recent figures, a 15% reduction in personal robbery. This is classified as personal robbery. And a 25% reduction in personal theft. This is classified as personal theft. I'm not complacent. We're going to make more progress. But we're also at the same time lobbying phone companies. Why? If you remember, years ago, the thefts of car stereos from our cars or the TomToms, the sat-navs. The government worked with manufacturers to design out this issue. Well, why can't the phone companies make stolen phones useless by having a kill switch? By denying access to the cloud if a phone is stolen, having a unique number plate almost visible on a phone. So we're doing the enforcement stuff. We're going to carry on doing the enforcement stuff, but also work with the phone companies to make more progress.
And the aircon has just kicked in and none of us can work out how to turn it off because it's automated in this very high-tech building. Just on phone theft, though, I mean, you go to a lot of places. I mean, for example, when you get off the tube, quite often you see a sign in the underground station saying, be careful how you use your phone. Don't use your phone as you're leaving the tube station. I mean, is that advice you give to people? Keep your phone in your pocket?
Well, can I explain why TfL of Transport for London have done that?
It's quite a horrible thing to see.
Yeah. Look, without in any way victim blaming, it's really important to understand who's responsible. The robber or the thief is responsible, not you as somebody who may use your phone for a map or use your phone to make a phone call to say I've arrived safely and so forth. And so it's just to make us all savvy. Like you would when it comes to our bag being open or in a congested place, when you go to a concert, so forth, to make sure you're not the victim of pickpocketing.
Isn't that the phone thieves winning, even without having to steal the phone? Because they're making normal, law-abiding people have to change their behaviour, and you can't do something that's a pretty normal thing to do.
Adam, you're making a case for leaving our windows open all the time and our doors open, not locking them and stuff. Look, I'm somebody who believes
those
in...
were the days.
Look, I think it's a combination of personal responsibility, but also understanding we need tough enforcement. We've got record numbers, by the way, in London of closed-circuit television, really important in terms of deterring crime, but also catching perpetrators. But also we've made good progress in this golden quarter this winter in terms of theft and robbery. We're going to build on that.
Let's talk about social media. You mentioned it a few minutes ago in the context of X, and we've seen this debate rumbling in the last 24, 48 hours around X in the UK and its place in the political conversation, even the national conversation. Where are you on that platform and those who make the argument that there could be circumstances where it would be justified to basically turn it off in the UK?
Well, my starting point is social media, generally speaking, has been a source for good.
Do you think so? Because, I mean, you've been on the wrong end of some of the most horrific abuse of it. It's quite something for you to say that.
Yeah, of course there are bad examples, but, you can connect with people halfway across the globe. Just think about what's happening in Iran at the moment as we speak, or in the uprisings taking place across the Middle East in the past. And so it allows you to be a citizen journalist, often, apologies for you professional journalists, but also it allows you to connect. So I can broadcast on social media. If, for example, heaven forbid, the BBC doesn't want to cover my story, I can broadcast on social media. My concern about social media is regulation has not caught up with the pace of innovation around social media, the most recent incarnation being AI. My concern around social media when it comes to people like me is not about me personally, but if you're somebody who's an ethnic minority or somebody who's a woman or a girl thinking about becoming a politician, you may think twice or thrice because of the experience women politicians suffer on social media, or I suffer. But actually what we need to do is this. Firstly, now that there is an Online Safety Act, Ofcom have the powers they didn't in the past have. Let's wait and see what Ofcom conclude in their investigation, what sanctions they put on X. I would hope X would act responsibly in terms of what Ofcom find. But it's really important that the parliamentarians, the legislators understand that each stage since social media was invented, they've been behind the curve. Think about the regulation there is on the BBC, on mainstream media, whether it's newspapers or broadcast compared to social media.
So would you want similar kind of regulation for social media as the BBC, as broadcasters, as newspapers have?
Well, I think there's a whole conversation about algorithms. There's a whole conversation about the fact that there aren't human beings to double check what's happening on social media. Since Elon Musk converted Twitter to X, he removed a lot of the human beings, changed the algorithms.
Anonymity, of course, another thing.
Yeah, I think there are real question marks to be asked here. There's a whole different conversation about whether social media is a publisher and the responsibility that brings with it in terms of fact checking. And one of my concerns are the distortions and untruths that can amplify in seconds across the globe. I was at the receiving end of this a couple of years ago when a deep fake was used of me allegedly ordering
your voice,
the commissioner.
Yeah, one of the first ones as well that people noticed.
Yeah, and so there are many examples of this. So I think that's why it's important for legislators to understand that actually we can't just have a free for all, sort of Wild West when it comes to social media. We need proper guardrails.
Just to be clear, though, so you're saying the Online Safety Act that we've got now and Ofcom, that's kind of right as far as it goes. But what do we need? We need, bolt-ons to the Online Safety Act that includes AI and misinformation? Or a new Online Safety Act 2.0?
So my view is this: the Online Safety Act was diluted from what was the original Online Safety Bill for reasons that we don't need to go into now. I think it should be the floor, not the ceiling. And I think it should be kept under constant review. Actually, when you speak to innovators, when you speak to those who are responsible owners of social media, what they want is certainty. They want to know what the rules of the game are. AI has completely transformed this conversation, by the way. By the way, AI on X is just the start of us being exposed to some of the challenges that AI will bring. I want London to be the global capital of innovation. But what people say to me is what would really help us is if we knew what the rules of the game were. And I think this government can take a lead in providing rules of the game, providing certainty.
But they need to get a move on.
Spot on.
Okay. What about age limits? So the Kemi Badenoch, the Tory leader this weekend, says that social media basically should be banned for under 16-year-olds. A little bit more nuanced than that. Do you think that's a good idea?
Well, I remember the challenges we had, my wife and I, when our daughters were teenagers. It's just a minefield in relation to what's the right thing to do. You're never sure what is the right age to give your kid a phone. Should it be a brick phone or a phone where you can access the internet? What do you do about the fact that everyone else in the classroom has got a phone and your child feels like they're missing out? These are really difficult issues to grapple with. I'm curious about what's happening in Australia because they've decided to just stop it for everyone under the age of 16. The advantage that is to us is we can see about the Australian experience. We can see where the traps are. We can see where the benefits are.
And if it works in Australia, we should do it here.
Yes, I'm a firm believer in copying well rather than inventing badly.
So you're not quite where your fellow Mayor Andy Burnham is, who pretty much endorsed Kemi Badenoch's idea yesterday. You're let's see what happens down under and then maybe lift it.
No, I'm not there yet in terms of banning all kids from having access to a mobile phone and so forth. I do have concerns about what we've seen in the recent past with AI and Grok on X and stuff, and that's why I welcome Ofcom's investigation.
Let's talk about the Labour Party.
I was just going to say copying well, Exhibit A. Newscast logo on Oxford Street.
Let's talk about the Labour Party, and in particular these elections that are coming up in May. A big set of elections in London, not for you, but for the Labour Party all over London. How do you look ahead to those contests and the challenges that the opinion poll suggests that Labour faces? I mean, pretty much from all directions in different parts of the capital.
Yeah, for those of your listeners who aren't on and viewers who aren't in London, these are all-out elections in London. We've got 32 boroughs. Just under 2,000 councillors, and all seats are up for grabs.
So a big set of elections in the
We
country.
did remarkably well 4 years ago. During the middle of my second term, we won more than 60% of council seats up for grabs. I know, because I was an MP at the time, how difficult council elections are for Labour governments. Midterm elections tend to be very difficult for us. I want voters to vote on these council elections based on the merits of how good or bad a council is doing. I understand, though, that people will vote and treat it as a referenda on the national government. Over the course of the next few weeks and months, as challenging as the elections are going to be, I want us as Team Labour to be going out to explain the benefits of the Labour government over the last 14, 15 months, from supporting renters, from supporting workers, from supporting parents, from supporting businesses, from supporting those people who are desperate for an appointment with their doctors and so forth. And it's, I'm not going to pretend they're not going to be difficult for Labour, but we've got to work hard between now and that first Thursday in May to encourage people to lend us their support.
Sounds like a politer analysis than Wes Streeting managed when he talked about the sort of maintenance guys running the country. But it sounds like a critique that says that the government down the road, the UK national government, hasn't been good enough at telling its own story.
Well, I'm not sure it's a question of salesmanship. Look, you don't turn around a country that's been in this perilous state for 14 years in 14 months. It takes time to do so. When I see what the government's done over the last 16 months, yeah, sure, not perfect, but renters have rights they only dreamt of over the last 14, 15 years. Workers have rights we've been talking about for more than a decade. If you're a parent with a young child, you're now getting support with childcare and breakfast clubs. If you live in a family and you're both working as mum and dad and you've got more than 2 kids, you will now receive support in terms of universal credit and so forth. We've now got trade deals with India, the USA, the European Union and South Korea, and I could go on. And so look, it's not a question of the Labour government not doing much in the first 14, 15 months. It's recognising these are midterms, and in the past when there's been Labour government, we've not done as well during those midterm council elections.
I mean, the Prime Minister says that if people were to get rid of him within the party, it would be a disaster. Do you think he's right?
Well, I lived through the 2019 general election when the Labour Party got its worst results since the 1930s. And when Keir Starmer became leader, we were having serious conversations, not just whether we could win again, whether the party could become extinct within one term. We didn't just, win an election, we won a landslide election. So I'd say gently, don't write off Keir Starmer. He's inherited an awful legacy, but I'm confident that we can turn it around.
You also lived through the Gordon Brown premiership, and loads of people wanted to get rid of him. They didn't, and Labour lost then.
Well, listen, I've lived, I was an MP when Tony Blair was Prime Minister and Gordon Brown. I think I've had 7 since I've been mayor, many of them Tories, by the way. Look, I think obsessing about my re-election or
7-0, that's quite a good record, actually, isn't it?
Or I think obsessing about a general election or a mayoral election when you're the candidate is indulgence. Your focus should be delivering for the country, addressing the cost of living crisis, addressing the crisis in the public services, addressing the NHS issue, addressing the housing issue, and so forth. That should be a focus. And from what I've seen, this year, that's what the Prime Minister is focusing on.
Quick question about Europe. You just pushed by it there when you were talking about trade deals. We've seen bursting out in public in the last few weeks and months that the Labour Party collectively asking itself what a better relationship with the European Union might be. From those who've advocated rejoining the customs union to the Prime Minister in the last week or so talking about strengthening ties to the single market, albeit without rejoining it. We know where you've been in the past on this question, articulating an argument on behalf of London. How do you dissect that conversation that's going on within the Labour Party, and where should the party be trying to get to?
I respect the results of the referendum. I think leaving the European Union was the biggest act of economic self-harm any country's ever done. The European Union are not just our nearest neighbours, they're our closest trading partners, biggest trading partners.
So where do we go now, in your view?
I think we need even closer alignment with the European Union. I welcome the progress made with a youth mobility scheme. I welcome the trade deal we've now got with the European Union. We need even closer alignment. When I speak to business in London, most of our business are the service sector rather than goods. But yeah, no, I think we should be having closer alignment.
To a customs union.
Well, we've got to look at the impact it'll have on the US trade deal and the India trade deal and the South Korea trade. Well, yes and no. I mean, don't assume that just because we have closer alignment with the European Union, whether it's parts of the customs union or the customs union, or parts of the single market or single market, we get the same deal as other countries as well. I understand the reason why people are against free movement of people. I understand that some people explain the Brexit vote as a proxy on migration. That's all well and good. That shouldn't mean that we're not looking to closer alignment. And that's why I think it's really important to welcome the fact that, Prime Minister Keir Starmer is on far better terms with, the Chancellor of Germany, the President of France, the President of the European Union than any Prime Minister in recent past.
So in essence, you in terms of alignment would take whatever you could get to get the UK closer to the EU within the red line that you said around freedom of movement.
Yeah, but obviously it's all a negotiation. I think the ends should be a closer alignment. It's got to be in the best interest of the UK, both economically and culturally, and by the way, socially as well.
This is taking me back to discussions about passporting for financial services, those happy days. Mr. Mayor, thank you very much.
Always a pleasure.
So Sadiq Khan has left the room. The air conditioning is still going on and off as we speak. What was your take on what he had to say?
I think he's very aware, isn't he? Two things. One, back to where we started this episode, a wider sort of national thing that says that people, it is fashionable, and it has been for the last 10, 20 years, I think, for people to talk up their sort of out of London credentials. We do it as broadcasters, we mustn't be seen to be London centric, let's go to X, Y, or Z. And that is a laudable thing to do, I would say that, wouldn't I? Because I try to do quite a lot of it. But that sort of reminder of London's scale, reminder of brand London on the international stage and how that, if you like, bleeds into people's perceptions of the UK. And then certainly from the mayor's perspective, that sense of injustice that he sees a narrative that is out there with people with big megaphones, not least the President of the United States, making an argument about a city they don't really know or understand. And here is the mayor, who's been very electorally successful in winning mayoral contests here in London, pointing to stats that says, look, hang on a minute. Certainly when you look at, murders and knife crime and whatever, there's a very powerful counter-argument to make.
He was pretty loyal to the Labour leadership,
wasn't he? He was. Yes, he was. I think a recognition in those exchanges about the elections coming up in London in May that they're going to be pretty bleak for Labour. You had to read the subtext to get to that, but I think that's pretty clear within Labour circles. They're coming from a very high bar. I think what's going to be really interesting after the elections in May is the extent to which how Labour perform in London could be quite outsized, because yes, there'll be an interest in Wales, huge interest in Wales, and indeed in Scotland and elsewhere in England, but London at sort of every level is kind of a Labour city. Most of the MPs in London, vast majority of the MPs in London are Labour. So many of the councils are Labour, and sometimes with absolutely colossal majorities. And so how London Labour, and loads of Labour members are in London, a disproportionate number. So how London Labour reacts to the elections in May and their aftermath could be really key in all of the questions about the Prime Minister's future, the government's direction, etc., etc.
And it just seems to me, when it comes to social media and technology, if there's any evidence, even quite early evidence, that the Australian social media ban for under-16s works, so many politicians in Britain will leap on that and push for it to happen here, and that could happen quite quickly.
I think that's right. On a human level, I was really struck by the mayor's opening sort of salvo in response to that question, where he said he really likes social media and the value that it brings.
Even though he gets so much grief.
Because the grief, and not just grief, it's worse than
abuse.
That, isn't it? Horrific racist abuse over and over again, pretty much every single day, would on a human level make plenty of people think that, you should turn off social media within the next 5 minutes, and 5 minutes is 4 minutes, 59 seconds too long. And yet that opening gambit about the kind of power of it as a tool, just on a human level, kind of struck me. But leaving open the space for him to move to where Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Greater Manchester, is in endorsing the Kemi Badenoch idea that you have restrictions for teenagers, under 16s, that takes them off social media entirely.
And while we were here at City Hall, which has moved from its old location, it used to be by Tower Bridge, a bit more central. It's now out in kind of Docklands, next to the XL Centre, where there's lots of big events, and also where the famous/infamous cable car is. About 2 miles west from here, Nigel Farage, Reform leader, was doing his regular Monday morning news conference, and he unveiled another Conservative defector who was, or is?
It was the Chancellor of the Exchequer briefly, and is Nadeem Zahawi, long-standing Conservative minister, was a big noise during the pandemic in as far as the rolling out of the vaccines were concerned, and is a big scalp for reform. The golden rule of defections is the party that gets the defector wears a broad smile. The party that loses the person usually slags them off on the way out the door and says it's proof that the Conservative response is one of talking about how many Conservatives have gone to reform, which is a bit of a, if you like, a nice problem for reform to have around people saying, are you just a home for former Conservatives? But then if you are the recipient of people who are heading in your direction, that is broadly, net a positive. One thing that stands out for me, Adam, is that whilst we've seen all of the swirl of stuff about what Nigel Farage said or didn't say when he was at school, best part of half a century ago, and there's been another run at this from The Guardian in the last few days, we've now had 2 consecutive weeks where Reform have done news conferences where the star, if you like, in inverted commas, of the news conference was a senior Reform figure with a minority ethnic background. So Layla Cunningham, the person Reform will set up as a challenger in the next London mayoral contest, maybe against Sir Sadiq or not. He's not yet committing to whether he's going to run again. And then this week, Nadeem Zahawi, which I just think that is interesting against a vulnerable spot in terms of people's perceptions of reform, to put it at its most gentle.
I've just got 2 observations about it. One is about reform itself, and one is about reform's relationship with the voters. So with voters, do people see Nadeem Zahawi as, a very experienced person who's been in government and knows lots of government departments and is clearly a grown up? Or do they see the Nadeem Zahawi, whose political career ended because he didn't pay the right amount of tax and was in a massive dispute with the taxman, and he got fired because of it?
Indeed. And of course, 2 things can be true at the same time. And in this instance, both of those are part of his biography.
And for different groups of people who might react to it differently. Yeah. And then the second thing about just within reform, remember one of the previous defections was Danny Kruger, who was brought in with the job of getting reform ready for government and thinking about how do you run government departments, how do you make government policy into reform policy into government policy. I wonder if Nadeem Zahawi will feel he's quite an expert in that too, and that sets up perhaps a bit of a struggle between those two, or maybe they'll get on famously.
So the thing that fascinates me, and full disclosure as we record, because we've been talking to the Mayor of London, and I was doing something else this morning. I've not yet listened to the news conference with Nigel Farage and Nadeem Zahawi, but the first thing that came to mind for me, and remains a live question, whatever he said or didn't say in the news conference, which newscasters may have heard by the time you're listening to this, is to what use do Reform put Nadeem Zahawi? Because Reform acknowledge, because it's true, that the massive challenge they face as they aspire to be a party of government starting from square one is, can they assemble the personnel and the infrastructure and the skill set of a potential alternative government? That is a massive ask of any party. It's a colossal ask of a party of Reform's relative size at the moment and youth. And people like Nadeem Zahawi, with a career and CV like his, could potentially, if they're up for it and can put in the time and they don't fall out with people who are already there, etc., be hugely useful, alongside, frankly, plenty of others, as Nigel Farage acknowledges. So for me, beyond the blast of headlines today around, look who Reform have recruited now, the real question is, to what use can they put him?
Chris, thank you very much. That's all for this episode of Newscast, which came to you from City Hall in London. We're in a meeting room by the atrium, and we've now got to creep past about 120 people from the housing department who are having an away day. So maybe we'll be able to get some scoops on house building in London as we head for the exit. Or actually just
annoy them as we clatter past with all our kit. Oh, I've just knocked my water over.
And now Chris has managed to just trash City Hall. So I think we should definitely get out of here. Thanks for listening. We'll be back with another newscast very soon. Bye.
Anyone got any paper towels?